Hey guys, my name's Keith Mathias with Remax Champions, and today I just wanted to kind of give you a quick explanation of that NAR lawsuit that we've been hearing all about. Just to point out, the big part about this NAR lawsuit, it really covers how we compensate buyer's agents. Okay, so from that point of view and from my perspective, in my opinion only, I want to make sure, I just want to kind of give you my take on what's going on and what this kind of is going to look like going forward. Okay, to start out, I just want to go through my resume. Got a bachelor's in finance degree, bachelor's in economics. I spent 10 years originally in accounting, 5 years in real estate. After that, since then, I've been in the top 10% of agents in productivity here in the county. Born and raised in Minnesota. Spent a lot of time across the border in Iowa, right in that Okoboji, Spirit Lake area. If you're familiar with Iowa at all, I'm sure you've been there and heard of it. I spent a lot of time there. Grew up in the lakes, all that good stuff. Now I'm a father of two, trying to raise them down here in Florida. Doing the best we can. It's been fun. All right, so moving right along, I want to start out with historically how these buyer's agent commissions have been paid. Okay, because again, this whole lawsuit really centers around the how we compensate buyer's agents. All right, historically, real estate. The traditional real estate commission structure often worked like this. When you sell a home, you agree to pay a commission that usually covers both the listing agent and the buyer's agent. Now, this commission typically is calculated as a percentage of the final sale. It's split between both agents, the buyer's agent and the listing agent, and the buyer usually doesn't pay their agent directly. Instead, the seller covers these costs through the sale proceeds. Now, with these changes and in this lawsuit, it's been brought up how we compensate these buyers agents and how it's been handled historically. Particularly whether sellers should be obligated or required to pay these buyers agent services. Okay. Now, a quick summary of the lawsuit. In 2023, several home sellers filed a class action lawsuit together against the National Association of Realtors and several real estate brokerages. They alleged that NAR rules required sellers to offer compensation to buyers agents, through the MLS, which amounted to anti-competitive practices that artificially inflated the total cost of buying and selling homes. Lawsuit claimed that by obliging sellers to pay for buyers agents, the system was just unfair and violated antitrust laws. As a result, sellers were burdened with the additional costs. Now, the outcome of that lawsuit, in October of 2023, the jury ruled against NAR, essentially, and the brokerages, finding that the rules were actually anti-competitive. The plaintiffs were awarded financial compensations, the lawyers made a whole bunch of money, all that stuff, but that decision potentially has it has the potential to make some pretty big changes in our industry and how the commission structures work, both for home buyers and sellers nationwide. Okay, so the main part that happened in this lawsuit is that we can no longer publicly offer publicly show and advertise what we are offering to a buyer's agent. That was the part of it that was violating the antitrust laws. So now moving forward, we can still offer compensation for the buyer's agent. I think I still recommend that we do. I want to point out that I don't really know what's going to be the new norm going forward. This is a pretty big change in our industry, but I want to point out that historically, no matter what, the buyer always paid X and the seller always received Y, with the difference being the two commissions. Okay, and some other fees. Everybody's got some closing costs. Your lender's got closing costs. Title's got closing costs. There's county fees that are going to be due. All kinds of things that come out of the bulk of the money. Okay, now working with me going forward, it's very important to point out that there are no set structures. There are no set commission structures. It's not set at the state level. It's not set at the brokerage level. All of our commission structures are negotiable between the home seller and your listing agent. Very much like when you're buying a house, the purchase price is negotiable, and if both sides don't come to an agreement on that, they just don't make it happen. Okay, so in my individual real estate business, I actually have options for the compensation structure of your listing, and that's something we can talk about at the time when we have our initial seller consultation. Now, that amount, whatever we negotiate, is going to be paid only at closing, only if the home is successfully sold. And now, when I list your home, I personally invest some of my money up front to pay for the digital photography, the targeted marketing, online and offline exposure, as well as some other costs that they're kind of variable depending on the listing. Sometimes we might need to get a cleaner in there. Sometimes we might need to get a landscaper in there. Sometimes we might need to do little things that we just have to do to get the house sale that ultimately is going to lead to you getting a better price. Okay. Now, it's important to note that those costs, you do not need to reimburse me for those charges unless we negotiate something special. If the home does not sell, you are not going to have to pay me anything in the timeline with which we've negotiated. Okay, and we can talk about that later. Okay, so in terms of compensating a buyer's agent, I still always recommend that we compensate a buyer's agent. I want to point out how the commission structure flows, how the dollars actually flow, just so that you fully understand. Any fee that is charged initially in terms of the commission for the sale of the house, the total fee, no matter what we negotiate, is going to be compensated to the buyer's agent. That total fee is actually paid to my brokerage, the listing agent. From there, the listing agent's brokerage will pay me my cut. They take a chunk. It kind of gets divided out. But then they'll also send the compensating the amount that we agreed to compensate the buyer's agent. They'll also pay that off of their amount. And that's only if we do agree to pay a cooperating buyer agent. Now, paying a buyer agent broker is not mandatory. I do recommend it, but it is not mandatory. Okay, I want to point out that I don't think anybody really knows exactly what the new norm is going to be once all the dust settles. Okay, there's going to be some things initially, people not wanting to pay a buyer's agent compensation, some people that want to continue doing what is normal, and we're going to have to see what kind of works best going forward. Okay, I firmly believe that buyers need buyer's agents. There's a lot of money on the line. It's a very large purchase. And from the seller's aspect, you kind of need things to happen at a certain rate for it to close on time. And that's a big part of what us agents do, especially when we're handling the buyer, is that we know all those little hurdles and all those little hoops that jump through, and we hit them. One of the big things a buyer's agent does is protect the buyer's escrow deposit. Generally speaking, when you go into contract and make an offer on a new home, you're going to need to put down a deposit within the first 3 days, anywhere from 1 to 2%, which can be a lot of money. Okay, that escrow deposit could potentially be at risk if not handled correctly. This is things we do all day long, twice on Sunday, all year long, year in, year out. This is how we feed our family. We know that contract. We know the days that are supposed to be hit. We know the hurdles. We know the hoops, and we protect that agent or that buyer's escrow deposit. If we lose our buyer's agent's escrow deposit, we're not a very good agent, especially if it was something that we just missed a day or something. Now, that's something all day long buyers that are not familiar with the contract could miss. And if you need to sell this house to buy this house, and this buyer misses something, this house could be at jeopardy. And when you're typically buyers and sellers, you're selling one house to move to another house. There's some pieces that need to fit together really well. And if they don't, this one doesn't happen, and we could potentially lose the house of your dreams. It's a big deal, okay? So in terms of, do I recommend you pay a buyer's agent? I still do recommend we pay a buyer's agent, but again, it's not mandatory, and it's completely something that you can decide. Now, can I pay less of a commission? Yes. Again, all real estate commissions are negotiable between the seller and the listing broker, hopefully me. You can offer the buyer broker any amount you want. You can even offer $0. But if you choose to pay the other agent $0, I just want to make sure you understand that that buyer must still pay their agent. While this may seem fair to you, that the buyer pays their own agent, just understand that that's going to limit the amount of buyers who can afford your home. Some buyers don't have enough money to close with a mortgage, let alone pay extra for their agent. When a buyer is buying a house, just so you understand, typically we're looking at 20%. Okay, so on an average house, call it 3 to 500,000. 500,000. 20%, that's $100,000 that they're coming up with out of cash just to pay their down payment. Then their loan, their lender's going to have closing costs, 1 to 2%. Title's going to have closing costs. There's money out of pocket happening. Okay, so just understand, if we're also tacking on a buyer's agent fee that they maybe weren't expecting to pay, it's going to limit the amount of money that they can actually purchase that home for. Because again, these commissions are separating what a buyer is paying and what a seller is receiving. No matter what, how we pencil this in on what side of the line it goes on. Okay, now these buyers could decide not to make an offer on your home due to the additional expense, which is a risk. And right now we don't have a lot of buyers out there, so we want to limit those risks. So I again always recommend offering 2.5%, but that choice is always yours to make. Okay, now we could go into this listing agreement and you say, hey, I'm not going to pay a buyer, and that's the contract that we come up with and the commission structure you agree to. The buyer may still ask, okay? No matter what we choose to pay or not pay, a buyer may still ask you to contribute money to offset their buyer's broker fee. Think of this as a form as buyer concession, seller credit, just helped to cover some of the buyer's closing costs. These have typically been done for closing costs. It's been done for repairs that are wanted to be pushed down the line and done after closing. There's a lot of reasons that we have seller concessions and credits. It's always something that's going to be negotiated in, and they can still ask no matter what we decide. What I want to, my promise to you guys, okay, when I bring you an offer, I'm always going to bring you what's known as a seller's net proceeds sheet. Okay, that sheet is going to explain all the closing costs that are in with that offer. And at the bottom of it, way after all those lines, it's going to tell you what you're going to bring home, what the check that's going to be deposited into your account at closing, what that is. That's your net proceed. It's the only thing that matters, guys. Doesn't matter if you pay a credit for this. It doesn't matter if you pay a credit for that. It doesn't matter what their actual loan value is. What only matters to you guys at the end of the day is what you're bringing home, what's being deposited into your bank account, and I'm going to make sure that that's always crystal clear. We're never going to be guessing. We're never going to be doing math in our head. That's what I'm here for. I want to make sure that you're making the best choice possible. Okay? That's pretty much the end of my explanation here. It's a new world we're going to be living in. I don't think any of us really know what's going to happen until the dust fully settles. But for now, that's kind of how I plan to move forward. It's going to be a little different. There's going to be some buyers that are coming in unrepresented. It's going to produce some new challenges, and I think we're all going to kind of learn as we go a little bit. But hopefully that helped you guys. It's definitely, we're getting a lot of misinformation out there in the media. Hopefully this cleared a little bit of it up. Again, my name's Keith Mathias with Remax Champions. I've helped buyers and sellers all over the Tampa Bay area. If you have any questions, would like to speak personally, would like me maybe to run some numbers on what your house value is looking like, I'm always here for you. Give me a call, reach out today. Would love to hear it from you. All right, thanks again for listening. I'm glad you guys made it till the end. Have a good day now.